Welcome to Sports from the Couch.
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
With your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. And on today's edition of Sports from the Couch, we have a very special episode. We are going to power rank the NFL teams midway through this 2021 season using the TierMaker website. It is a fun time, so stick around for that. See where your team lands. Do I think they're a Super Bowl contender, a playoff contender, a playoff pretender, or is the season over? We get to that and so much more. But before we do, let's take care of some housekeeping notes. You can follow us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike and Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and you can be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, share us, give us 5 stars wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Check out the video version of the show, especially episodes like today, over at youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Hit the subscribe button and that bell to be notified every single time we upload a brand new episode. You can support us, guys. Visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Check out the sports show, the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 AM Chicago, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. as we recap the week that was the world in sports in the national and Chicago scene. If you can't catch us live on Sundays, we're on SoundCloud at SoundCloud WCPT 820. That's the Sports Cubicle with Dan Marver, Devin Tingle, Paul Shivari, and myself. Follow us on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. You can also follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves in case you miss any one of our other shows. The Good Brothers, the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast, the Gone Missing podcast, of course, all our episodes of the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. That's on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. All right, friends, let's get into it. Let's rank and make a nice tier list here on Sports from the Couch midway through the 2021 NFL season. You're listening to Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. We're about to get to some trouble with some fan bases. I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you for keeping it with us, guys, here on Sports from the Couch. And it is finally time to do our mid-season TierMaker list on the NFL season. It has been a crazy one, especially heading into this coming up week 11 in the NFL. I'm super excited to just kind of talk to you guys and see how this is all played out for your team, my favorite team, and the rest in the NFL. So we actually did this in the beginning of the season. So if you guys would like to check that out in the archives, we have the podcast version up wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. And of course, you can see the video version right here on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. And I thought it would be a fun thing to kind of do it midway through the season and see how things have changed and then compare it to how we did it in the beginning of the season. And then, of course, at the end of the season, when we make our playoff predictions and Super Bowl winners, we want to kind of look back at this as a reference point, and it's a lot of fun to have that capability. So I think why delay any longer, right? Let's just check it out. We've known how crazy of a season it's been, so we'll kick it off right here with our first team on our list, and it is the Seattle Seahawks. So as you can see right here, we've kind of trimmed down the tiers. And the green, again, I don't know why TierMaker makes it red. It's the top of the list, and on the bottom is green. I've always thought green is better. With that, I've made it Super Bowl contender is your light green. That is the teams that could win the Super Bowl, and they have a great chance at winning it. Even if they haven't played great football the last few weeks, even if they don't have the best of records, they're a team, I believe, that all things being equal can win a Super Bowl. Your pea green is a playoff contender. Those are your teams that can make the playoffs. If they get lucky, they can do some stuff in the playoffs, but you're not necessarily putting money on them to win the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Then we have playoff pretenders. And I think this is a key one because the thin line of a playoff contender and a pretender, we're going to try to distinguish that on this edition of Sports from the Couch. And finally, in red, it's over. Whether or not, again, your record shows it. I think we have to be honest with ourselves about some of these teams, including some of our favorites. So I think that's what we're going to do today, is just try to be honest and fun. So make sure you guys leave your comments as we go along, and we have some fun doing it. And the first team is the Seattle Seahawks. So we actually go over here. I have my trusty standings ready to go at 3-6. So this is a team where I think it's over. And it's crazy to say that on a team that has Russell Wilson, but we saw what happened on America's Game of the Week against the Green Bay Packers. And you had both quarterbacks coming back, one from COVID and one from pins in his throwing hand. And it was his finger, right? His index finger. And I think the big thing for this Seahawks team is there's a lot of volatility here. And I think Russell Wilson is so good, and he's so notorious for having such a great start to the seasons, that we forgot how much turmoil there was for this quarterback and this franchise. Right here in Chicago, we saw how for sure we thought that Russell Wilson was going to be a starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears before Justin Fields was drafted. So I think they might be more of a candidate for what I thought the Packers were going to be, who were going through their own situation with Aaron Rodgers. I thought it was going to be this disjointed thing, and they were going to blow up, and he was going to have mysterious injuries, and they weren't going to win many games. It's been the total opposite. Even the times he's not played, they found ways to at least be competitive or make it where you show that you need him. I think for Seattle, this is it. This is the last run, and I'm not even putting their record there. Their roster isn't great. You know, they made a lot of moves to placate and pay Russell Wilson, but it hasn't quite all worked together. And when you don't win when you get the chance in Super Bowls, it's so costly. And I think you saw that in Russell Wilson, where they had the chance to go back-to-back and they don't. And now we look at him as one of the great quarterbacks of his time, which he is. But you also have to be honest that they haven't won as much as they probably should have, as much as you think they should have. And I think for a lot of people, that's going to be something that they're going to keep their eye on when it comes to a Russell Wilson, especially if Russ goes somewhere else. And I think that's where if you're in Seattle, that's been the big story of this season, is what's going on with Russ, with Carroll. So I think for them, it is over. And you can turn off the lights, and the real story then becomes, what are they going to do with Russ in the offseason? But as of this midway point, I am putting the Seahawks as it is over for them and their season. Let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts at 5-5. I think these are playoff pretenders. Again, Jonathan Taylor's a beast. At points, it seems like that defense was able to figure it out. But again, there's so much inconsistency with Carson Wentz and the wide receivers. And he's so reckless that I don't know if you could put any stock in them. When even in the big injury in the division in Tennessee, we'll get to that, I don't think you can, with any confidence, say anything other than this team could finish, 8-9 or 9-8? Like, it's a team that's going to be interesting, be a pain in the butt, going to win games they're not supposed to win, going to lose games they're not supposed to lose. And that's how you end up on the playoff contender list. What about the Pittsburgh Steelers at 5-3? This is an interesting one. Playoff contender, playoff pretender. I think off of name and prestige, you automatically put them as a playoff contender. They're chippy defense. They have really nice, skilled players who are hurt, though, who aren't playing, and a quarterback who can't get the ball down the field. They have a special running back. But is that enough to win, especially with how much talents are around? And you saw what happened against the Bears on Monday Night Football just a few weeks back. I'm going to put them as a playoff contender. I think they're obviously better than the Colts, but this is an iconic franchise that the time has come. They're going to get rid of their Hall of Fame quarterback. They're not, what's interesting is they're not like the Packers. They're not opposed to going through quarterbacks and trying to find their guy. Now, coaches is a different thing. They're the ones who've had Hall of Fame coach after Hall of Fame coach after Hall of Fame coach. But when it comes to the roster, there's a lot of nice pieces, especially on defense, but they're hurt on the offensive side. And most importantly, their quarterback, I don't think has the goods anymore. It's a Hall of Famer. It's a big-time winner. I just don't know if in 2021, he's the guy that's going to lead Pittsburgh into a playoff run. So I have him as a playoff contender. Atlanta Falcons, I mean, obviously it's over. The big question for them, we know how good Kyle Pitts is. We know they found something in Cordell Patterson. What's going to happen with Calvin Ridley? Hopefully nothing but the best for him, and he's able to figure it out and have a happy, healthy life, whether that's playing football or not. What are you going to do at quarterback? You didn't want to go after a Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, so on and so forth. Are you going to make a move now? What are you going to do with Matt Ryan? What does Matt Ryan have left? is this shot goods or is this just a bad team? That's going to be the interesting thing for this Atlanta Falcons team moving forward. But I think we have ourselves a no chance. And, at 4-5, the record, again, not horrible, but I think that's the parity in the NFL because the next team is the San Francisco 49ers. And you take a look at them, and, they're a playoff contender. How strange is that? I have thought that they are overrated more than anybody else. But we saw against the LA Rams, and I'm not overreacting. I'm going to try to keep this in check. They're a playoff contender. They have, if healthy, a really nice wide receiver crew. Depth at running back. And potentially 2 quarterbacks that could run that offense. Whether we're talking about Pro Bowlers, all-pro quarterbacks, that's different. But being able to be efficient on an offense. I think they have enough to maybe come out of that division. And they were a darling for a lot of experts. So for them to kind of be rounding into shape now, as the rest of the NFC West is trying to figure out themselves, San Francisco has weathered the storm. So as of right now, I have them as a playoff contender. Oh, the New York Jets. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? How do you figure this out if you're the Jets? Because, again, we could point out things that you might like, that might even get you excited throughout a season, and that are taken away from you if you're a Jets fan. I think if you're a Jets fan, your hope is that the division doesn't run away from you so fast that you can at least prolong it, but you don't even know what you have at quarterback. No, it's beyond it's over. It's what do you do next? Buffalo, obviously a Super Bowl contender. Haven't had the best of weeks the last few weeks, but I think if you're just looking on paper and if you're looking if they're able to host a game in Buffalo, if they're able to try to just weather this, get to, stay above water, win the AFC East. Because, we look at it right now, it's actually pretty tight. You have them at 6-3, the Patriots at 6-4. Bill Belichick, man, the nightmare that won't go away if you're a Buffalo Bills fan. But I like the Bills. I think Josh Allen probably came down to earth a little bit, but Diggs is still a superstar. I would like to see them do something with that running game with Singletary and Moss. That would be fun. But they're a contender. It's just in this NFL season, we've seen the ebbs and flows, and I think right now they're just kind of middle tiering it, but I think they're there. And this is where a team that I find hard to grasp, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. Because if healthy, they're a Super Bowl contender. But they've had injuries like J.J. Watt. They don't have Kyle Murray. They don't have DeAndre Hopkins. I think they're a Super Bowl contender when they do. So midway through the season, I've seen some bad from them. But I've seen them also respond and dominate with a Colt McCoy. So I think when healthy, they're a team that can actually make a legit run to the Super Bowl. And again, it's coming out of a tough NFC West. But Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner, Chase Edmonds, if you get him back. With the Kyler Murray, it's a nice team. It's a potent team. It's just whether or not they can get on the field. But when healthy, all things being equal, I have them as a Super Bowl contender. I'm going to put the Eagles as a playoff pretender. I've liked Jalen Hurts the last few weeks. I don't think there's enough. I don't think the team is good enough. But I don't want to put them as it's over. Because unlike Seattle, I actually think that there's some gelling going on. There's some chemistry being built between the whole entire club. So I'm going to put the Eagles there. Let me know, Philadelphia Eagle fans, what are the vibes right now for the Eagles? How is everything going for this team? I want to know moving forward. New Orleans, it's over. You lost Jameis. Trevor Siemian's, he's whatever. Kamara hasn't played. Michael Thomas hasn't played. It's to see what happened the last few years as they've lost Drew Brees and they were at that pedigree. They're again 5-4. Shows just the parity around the NFL. But if I was to tell you right now, who would you take, Tampa Bay or New Orleans? You can't even for certain say that New Orleans can beat Carolina. If they had Jameis, I would say the X factor of it just being Jameis would be interesting. But I don't think they have a legit shot of anything. So I have them as an over. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to keep them right there. I'm going to put New England as a playoff contender because they do everything right. They're not flashy. They got a quarterback that knows their system. They got really nice players at wide receiver and running back, which is crazy to say about New England. They play defense. And it's not like the AFC East is this killer division. Buffalo's kept it close. So, would you be surprised if they found a way to host a game in Foxborough? Who are you putting your money on against Bill Belichick besides going Patrick Mahomes? Don't let New England get into the playoffs, guys. Don't let them get into the playoffs. The Chargers, they're playoff pretenders. And this hurts me to say because I love the LA Chargers. I do. But no, just way too inconsistent. And, you know, I think we do this thing where we fall, and you know this, we fall in love with players. And Justin Herbert, in his second year, good quarterback. A drop-off from last season. But we overanalyze and overhype and overvalue so many guys and put so much on them that we just assume that the Chargers are going to go on this big run and that, oh my God, Mahomes has lost to Kansas City, is going to get taken over. This is it. The Chargers are going to go run away with it. You still got to prove it to us. You still got to get to the playoffs. You still got to win double-digit games. And I think you're looking at a team that Mike Williams has taken a step back. Austin Eckler has had a rough few weeks, has missed some practices, but still plays in games and balls out. But I don't know. I want to put more trust and faith in the Chargers, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing from them. And I'm not liking necessarily that maybe the NFL has figured out a little bit of Justin Herbert, and now it's time for him to make his adjustments. But it's something we'll have to keep our eye on. Speaking of adjustments and who knows what kind of team they are, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. I thought they would be a fun team to kind of see if they can make a little bit of a playoff push. This is a team that we know they're not going to make the playoffs next year. It's just about building around Joe Burrow. You know, making sure that, first of all, he stays upright. And he already has weapons. But you just got to continue to make sure that your investment is getting the best opportunities to grow and evolve. Whether that's more offensive line help, whether that's even more dynamic players, even if he's got a bunch. You never stop investing. And you're seeing it in the AFC North. You got a chance right now. Cleveland is in disarray because they don't know what to do with Baker. You know Pittsburgh's in their last run with Ben Roethlisberger. So it's Lamar Jackson in Baltimore or Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. If you're Cincinnati, you may not feel like you could win anything this season, or chances are you won't win anything this season, but you're so close. You need to strike right now. Invest on that defense and make sure you continue to build around Joe Burrow. It's that simple. Take advantage of it now, because you just don't know how long you're going to have until the rest of your competition catches up to you. Ask Buffalo. You don't think they're worried a little bit about New England? Got to strike when the iron's hot. We're going to save the Bears. You know, since we're in Chicago, we're going to save the Bears for last. Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl contenders. I know we make fun of Cowboy fans. I know we make fun of America's team, but good defense, good quarterback, weapons on the wide receiver side of the ball, but also their running backs are pretty deep with Tony Pollard and obviously Zeke. They're getting Michael Gallup back, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. It's a good team. It's a good team. And this is why I wanted to do this list, because the NFL is so week to week that we've seen blemishes for so many of these teams. And we were talking about some records, how there's so many 5-4 teams, 4-5 teams, a few 3-7s. There's only one truly, truly bad team when it comes to their record, and that's Detroit. But everybody else, you're seeing the parity in the league, and everybody's had bad games, including Dallas against Denver. But I still think, push comes to shove, they're a Super Bowl contender. They have the roster for it. Will they put it together? I don't know. But yeah, Dallas is a good enough team to not only get to the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. Dolphins, it's over. I think they have, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic for them. I'm going to put playoff pretender there. I like Jalen Waddle. I like Myles Gaskin. It just seems like, you know, maybe for fantasy purposes a little bit more, it just seems like they can't quite get it going. But It feels like he has a good. It's down to Tua Tagovailoa or what they're going to do with Deshaun Watson. For this season, they're going to be a headache for a lot of teams. They're going to be in a lot of games. They're going to upset some teams, and we saw it already against Baltimore. But I put them in the playoff contender much more than it's over because I feel like there is something to grow on that team. There is a foundation on that team. It's just you have to find the right guy. Maybe it's Tua. Maybe it's somebody else. But you could go from playoff pretender to playoff contender very fast in one offseason. And I like Miami. Foundation's there. It's just, what are you going to do with it? LA Rams, Super Bowl contender, bad showing on Monday Night Football, going on a bye week now by the time this video goes up. I mean, you lose Robert Woods, that's such a huge part of your offense. I don't think people, I know the experts keep telling you on TV, but I don't think people are really understanding, at least the fan is, understanding how big of a loss Robert Woods is. Like, how integral he is part of that offense, and not to have him and to lose him the way you did in the season that you're having, bringing in Odell Beckham. You got Henderson dealing with some injuries, and your team is front-loaded. It is all stacked up on your starters on that offense and defense side of the ball. So there is no depth. There is no help coming in. You got lucky with Odell. It took a bunch of circumstances for that to happen. So this has to work out for LA. Matt Stafford has to play great. They need to have home field advantage. I think the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl if they stay healthy, and if some caveats, right? If they stay healthy and if they host. But when it comes to starters, man to man, nobody's better than the Rams, or at least nobody says they can't. They're at par with everybody who says they're the best. But you got to play like it, and you got to keep it that way because you have no depth. But they're definitely a Super Bowl contender. The Raiders are an interesting team. I'm going to put them as a playoff pretender simply because they're so inconsistent with how mediocre they are. I like the Raiders. I think the Raiders are a good team. We've seen them play good games. But is Josh Jacobs spectacular? Is Derek Carr spectacular? We know Darren Waller is, but you've lost Henry Ruggs from his own dumb, bad mistakes. Henry Renfrow is a nice piece. But other than that, there's not a lot for this team to make a sustainable run. Now, they can be in the conversation. They'll be in it the entire season. They'll make it interesting. But then they'll make mistakes like they did with Deshaun Jackson. So you can't put them as a playoff contender. And again, the thin line, this is the one thing I wanted to make clear here on this edition of Sports from the Couch with your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you guys so much as we make our tier ranking list here on TierMaker midway through the 2021 NFL season. The thin line between playoff contender and playoff pretender. So raise your thing. I think that there's a bigger gap between Super Bowl contender and playoff contender, but that pretender and contender in the playoffs. And midway through the season, I could be completely wrong, and the Raiders make this deep run and get to a conference championship. But just like the Chargers, just like Pittsburgh, just like Cincinnati, just like Philly, just like the Colts, just like Miami, you could point out a lot of things that get you excited. But is it enough to be consistent? Or what they do can win them a garbage game, a sluggish game, a dirty game, a nasty game? I don't know. New England makes them a playoff contender. Same thing with San Francisco because they can run the ball consistently. Their quarterbacks know how to run the offense. They got coaches that know how to scheme properly. I think it's something to keep an eye on. I think that's the big difference. And this is the team that was controversial when we made the list in the beginning of the season. I know it's going to be one right now. It's the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to put them as a playoff contender. I don't think it's over. And I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. Do I think Baker Mayfield is a Pro Bowl All-Pro quarterback? No. Do I think he's a terrible quarterback? No. Do I think he's a bad quarterback? No. He's a good quarterback. That's it. Stops there. He's a good quarterback, though. That's been hurt since week 2 of the NFL season. And this team has been injured. No Kareem Hunt. Hasn't had Nick Chubb. Jarvis Landry's just coming back. Odell is gone. Like, this is a team that has suffered a lot of injuries in very important places. David Njoku is the guy leading the team in reception yards. Again, we talk about foundations, how quickly it could turn. If you're a Browns fan, I don't know if Baker is your answer for the future. But I do know is there is pieces surrounding Baker. And if he could get healthy, and if he could play up to the talent around the team, they can make as much noise as anybody. But the problem is I don't know if I could trust Baker on that light. I don't know if that's the difference either, though. If it's a chemistry thing. What if Lamar Jackson was on that team? I'll do you one better. I'll do you two better. About two guys that are legit going to be probably available for Cleveland if somehow they can pull a miracle. What if right now Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers were on the Cleveland Browns? I think Cleveland would be right there with the Green Bay Packers. Because what is the difference between the Green Bay Packers and the Cleveland Browns? Besides the prestige of always getting it right and having two great Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Green Bay, Devontae Adams is a special wide receiver, but he got special. He didn't get to the Packers already out of the box all-pro. We've seen Aaron Rodgers help develop and the talent that was already Randall Cobb become something, right? So what would he do with the Jarvis Landry? What would he do with Kareem Hunt, with a Nick Chubb? So on and so forth, right? David Njoku. Peoples-Jones, like there was enough to make you think that right now a playoff pretender could be a playoff contender with just a little bit of competent quarterback play. And you guys need to check out that video of the ESPN Cleveland radio host. I'm a Browns fan. Hilarious. But yeah, Browns are playoff pretenders. Giants, it's over. Giant fans, I want to know something. What's going on with Saquon? What are you going to do with him? Is there going to be an extension? Is he just going to walk? Did you use a number 2 draft pick? I don't know. What's up with Daniel Jones? We give a lot of crap to the New York Jets. But holy cow, what is going on with the Giants? What? Like, I guess Kadarius Toney would be like the one bright spot for the future. But everything else is a hot. Like, do you think Daniel Jones is a legit starting top 15 quarterback in the NFL if you're a Giants fan? No hate on the kid, but legitimately, knowing how fast the turnaround is for quarterbacks to get into this league, do you really think that? Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear that, especially from like Browns fans, from Giants fans. Jets fans will be interested to hear from with the recent moves of young quarterbacks. Falcon fans with Matt Ryan. Let us know on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk and on Twitter at Mike M Media. What do you guys think about your quarterback positions? What the heck is going on? I want to know your thoughts because, you know, as Bears fans, this is the first time that it feels like, at least for the next few years, that whether or not you get yourself like the next big thing, who knows? But at least you know you got yourself a starting quarterback. So an interesting spot to be in. Denver Broncos. I'm going to put them as a playoff pretender all the way at the very end. What's interesting about the Broncos is why aren't they playing Javonte Williams more? Please and thank you. All of us who have fantasy football. In all honesty, again, this is a team that, what if you have a Jerry Jeudy and a Tim Patrick and, you know, a Javonte Williams, a Melvin Gordon, if you had Aaron Rodgers? More importantly, what were they thinking not drafting Justin Fields between them and Carolina? We'll get to Carolina right now because Carolina, shout out to Cam Newton. They're not going. It's over. That's done. When you're the Denver Broncos and you're the Carolina Panthers and you have a chance to get a quarterback that early, whether it's Justin Fields, whether it's Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, doesn't matter. Mac Jones, doesn't matter. You got to do it because the lottery ticket of it hitting for the price you pay is too valuable not to do. You cannot assume you're going to make a trade. You can't assume that working with somebody else, depending on somebody else to get to where you need to get the ultimate payout for yourself. You got to do that in your own hands. Carolina and Denver both missed out. And Denver missed out on a chance to make a move for Aaron Rodgers and capitalize on a AFC West that with a all-pro Hall of Fame, all-time great like Aaron Rodgers, might be able to take over for 1 season, 2 seasons maybe. Now you're going to have to wait until the offseason and hope that everything stays the same and like the NFL won't NFL, and again, the fluctuation would happen. But if you're Carolina, and Denver, you've put yourself in a bad position. You've set yourself up back by not drafting a quarterback. But for this season, a playoff contender for Denver, because I've seen them beat good teams. They can run the ball, and they have really nice talent when healthy at wide receiver. Kind of the NFL, that's the big caveat when healthy. And Carolina, I love Christian McCaffrey, but Sam Darnold, enough said. Tampa Bay, Super Bowl contender. Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, that's the guy, right? They're obviously hurt. Antonio Brown has been hurt. Mike Evans is constantly hurt whenever he makes a spectacular catch. Chris Godwin has been hurt. Gronk is out. But even with all that, and even with them losing the last few weeks, are you really betting against Tom Brady and a roster that deep? They're the only team in the NFL, and I truly believe this. They're the only team in the NFL where it doesn't matter what they do in the regular season as long as they make it into the playoffs. I think any other team, momentum means something, chemistry means something. But for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, as long as they're in the dance, they not only should be, they probably are the favorite, even as a wild card team, even if they're on the road 3 different times, because they have talent everywhere on both sides of the ball. They've won a championship now, and they have the greatest to ever do it. It's plain and simple. We could try to overcomplicate this. We could try to make this trigonometry when it's just addition and subtraction. It's Tom Brady with a team we've seen him win with before, with weapons that are just, they're hurt. Are they hurt? Who am I to ever say somebody's not in pain, right? That's not what I'm saying. But, yeah, I've had this nagging injury for a few weeks. I'm going to take a few weeks off. Oh, yeah, that's cool. We got enough space and time in division lead and before the playoffs. Yeah. Oh, you're fully healthy now for a playoff run. That's just coincidental. Yeah. Dumb like a fox. Tampa Bay, Super Bowl favorites for sure. Detroit, they play hard. I mean, it's over just because of their record. I'll say this much. Compared to other Detroit teams that have been bad, compared to other bad football teams in general that might finish 16-1, they play hard. They have a nice piece in DeAndre Swift. They need a young quarterback. That's what they're going to have to go get. Jared Goff ain't it. But damn if this team doesn't play hard, and they're not going to make you go through the mud to try to get a victory, and that they don't play for their coach. I like Detroit. I think Lion fans, while they're just so upset in that tie game against Pittsburgh, losing because of your kicker who just, we know the pain here in Chicago, but I think Lion fans are pretty ecstatic because there is something there. There is a culture being built, and you just need to get some pieces, and in the NFL, it's that fast. The turnaround can happen that quickly. Unlike a team that's also horrible, but it's just going in all the wrong directions, it's the Houston Texans. Compare the two. You would rather be a Lions fan right now than a Texans fan, because you know that even if you lose every single game this season, that they played hard, they played somewhat intelligent football for bad Detroit Lions football, that they're going to, if they make the right moves in the offseason, and they don't, bury their head in the sand and think that doing the same old thing they've done before is good enough, they can make legit strides. And if Aaron Rodgers leaves the NFC North, it's wide open for all 3 teams in the Vikings, the Lions, and the Bears to try to make up some room. I like Detroit. That's not the case in Houston. You don't trust the ownership. You don't trust the people the ownership have put in charge. You don't trust the coaching staff. And obviously, you can't trust what's on the field on the roster. You don't know what's going on in quarterback. That is a horrible, horrible situation. Maybe the worst situation in football. And that's the Houston Texans. It is beyond it's over. It is a nightmare for the Texans. Jacksonville, obviously it's over. We're going to put them on the top right here. And I'm going to do the same thing with Detroit. Simply because, again, I don't know how good Urban Meyer is going to be. But I do know Juice Robinson's a good running back. I do think Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be okay in the NFL. And I think if you're able to build some form of culture, if the Cons are able to spend some money, and if Urban Meyer is able to not be... Here's the thing, right? If Urban Meyer is able to be the distraction of the team to keep the heat off of his roster, and again, it's Jacksonville, so there's only going to be so much scrutiny on that team to begin with, it can work out for them. They do have some stuff that they can work together. Again, it's Jacksonville, but it's the AFC South. Do you trust the Houston Texans? Obviously not. We talked about them, so you can overtake them very easily. The Colts have Carson Wentz, so as long as you're competitive, you can always make a mistake over the next few years, and boom, you're in something. The Titans are going to have to strike sooner rather than later, because at some point, and we're seeing it now, Derrick Henry's body is going to break up. Ryan Tannehill, is he going to stay top 15? A.J. Brown, is he a top 12 wide receiver? Like, you have to, and we'll talk about Tennessee in a second, but if you're Jacksonville, you got to take advantage of it now. And isn't it crazy, right? All three bad teams wouldn't want to be rooting for them this season, right? Because you know the misery. But if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you have a little bit of a swag going like, but my team's tough. My team plays hard. If you're Jacksonville, you're like, there's some flash here. There could be a Mercedes underneath this little beat-up car. But if you're a Texans fan, it's bad. It's horrible. Washington, huh? I mean, you lose Ryan Fitzpatrick this year. They're a playoff pretender. And for Washington, it comes down to there's just not enough on that team. You lost Chase Young. I like Scary Terry. Antonio Gibson's a nice running back. Tyler Heineke, I mean, I think he's got the dude's got no fear. He's going to play a game, and they just beat Tampa Bay. I'm going to put him as a playoff contender, and I'll tell you why I just kind of convinced myself. They run the ball. They're able to play ugly. The big thing, and Ron Rivera is a really heck of a head coach. The thing is they're not sexy. And they are prone to making bad mistakes because it's still Washington, and I hate that ownership. But when it comes to the actual talent on the field, one big play from Scary Terry, Antonio Gibson, killing a bunch of clock, and the whatever little athleticism that you're able to get from Heineke in a creative way. I mean, Logan Thomas is pretty good. Like, okay, Washington will be an interesting team to see moving forward. So I have them as playoff contender because they can make things a little ugly and make things a nightmare for a bunch of different teams. Minnesota Vikings, we're going to put them as a playoff pretender. I'm going to put them actually a little bit below these teams right here. Dalvin Cook, we'll see what happens with him in his legal cases. Whatever happens with that. It comes down to Kirk Cousins. They have the weapons. They have all the weapons in the world. Don't have a great defense. But they got a coach on the hot seat and a quarterback that we know on primetime when the light is at his brightest and spotlighted right on him, he doesn't perform well. They should be better than they are. They should be a team that we should be looking at and be like, can they compete with the Green Bay Packers? That's just not the case. And I don't think it changes. I think they're going to be a coaching change there. And I think the Vikings are just a playoff pretender. Kansas City Chiefs, obviously a Super Bowl contender. I mean, they've never, this argument of are they done? Has the league figured out Patrick Mahomes? It's the NFL. First of all, we all know the bounce back of losing in the Super Bowl is so much tougher than going back after winning the Super Bowl. This team has been hurt. They don't even have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So this idea that they figured out the league, it's like, no, Patrick Mahomes has been hurt as well. And look at that. They play a little bit good football. What's the matchup designed to beat up on Travis Kelce? We saw what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did, but they also had the talent to do that. And also that defense stepped up because that defense didn't play like that the entire season last year. Kansas City is easily a Super Bowl contender. And the idea that people actually thought that they weren't, it's a little crazy. It's a little crazy. Because at the end of it, Who are you going to put your mortgage on? If you see a matchup between Kansas City and Buffalo in Arrowhead, even in Buffalo. And as I'm looking at this list, you know what? We're going to make some adjustments as we go on because we talked it through. We're seeing this list work out. I'm going to put the Baltimore Ravens as a playoff contender, not a Super Bowl contender. They are banged up, and I just don't. I think their running game, obviously being banged up. I don't trust Marquise Brown. Mark Andrews is a heck of a tight end, but Lamar can only do so much. Here's the thing, right? If you just let Lamar be Lamar, you're going to beat them because he's going to give you the ball back. That's a guarantee. So he could rush for 98 yards. He could throw for 2 touchdowns. He could have 297 yards through the air. But he's going to give you the ball back, and the game is going to be close because they can't run the ball enough to take a bunch of time off the clock, and they don't have receivers good enough to consistently get the ball, get it down, and keep the chains moving. They have a bunch of big breakout plays, but we'll see what happens with Bateman as the year goes on. But I think Baltimore is not a Super Bowl contender. I think they're a playoff contender. I think they can get hot. I think they can make things a nightmare for a bunch of teams. But when it actually comes to a Super Bowl winning team beating Kansas City, beating Buffalo, I don't think so. How about the Tennessee Titans? Playoff contender. Hot take? Maybe, but no Derrick Henry. Now, if they get Derrick Henry back for the playoffs, that changes things. That's a tough injury to come back from. But we've seen this team get close. We've seen Ryan Tannehill play some pretty good football. But I've also seen the scheme to beat the Tennessee Titans, especially the way they are right now with no Julio Jones and no Derrick Henry. You just double up on A.J. Brown, and you see if anybody else in that team can beat you. Now, they have been playing good defense. Home field advantage in Tennessee is interesting, though, right? Because if you're Kansas City, if you're Baltimore, if you're New England, and you get to go to Nashville, you don't have to play in the snow. That's the advantage. Whatever that was goes away, if that even is still a thing in this era of football. I like Tennessee a lot. I think these playoff contenders are teams that can make deep runs. That maybe surprise you a little bit, but that's where I put Tennessee. Green Bay Packers, Super Bowl contenders. They have Aaron Rodgers, plain and simple. That's how good of a quarterback he is. Aaron Jones, if he comes back healthy. If not, they have A.J. Dillon, Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb. It's a good team. And you have to go to Lambeau because they're going to win the NFC North. They're going to win a bunch of garbage games. They have such a huge lead. You got to go through Green Bay to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC. And I think the last dance means something to Aaron Rodgers, to that whole squad. I think they know this is it. And I think they want to stick up the middle finger to that ownership group, to the front office. And it almost plays itself out perfectly, right? All the turmoil, all the controversy, all the nonsense of Aaron Rodgers, for it to end up with him raising the Vince Lombardi trophy and then putting up the deuce sign, dropping the index finger, and heading out somewhere else. Kind of feels like that, unfortunately, as a Bears fan. And finally, as a Bears fan, we had to leave it to them. I'm going to put them as a playoff pretender, because record says so, NFC North says so. But let's be honest about it. This team is not going to win 6 straight games. They're not going to finish, they're not going to finish with 10 wins. They're not going to finish with 9 wins. I think I was pretty confident in saying they were going to finish 8-9, maybe 7-10, which is fine. For the Chicago Bears, this is what it comes down for. It's development of the rest of the team, of the chemistry, of you figuring out what you're going to do. What does that O-line look like? Tevin Jenkins coming back. You have Borum O's already coming back from injury. Both of these tackles are going to be there. What are you going to do with Jason Peters? Is he going to be gone? You know what you got to do. You got to fix that offensive line. That's the first thing. That's what gets you from a pretender to a contender right away. Then it becomes a coaching thing. And I know it's been the biggest gimmick that people have talked about here in Chicago. But for the Chicago Bears, if you think Justin Fields is the guy, if you think you found it, then you have no choice but to find the guy, the team, the staff, to develop him, to put the right scheme plan in there that's going to gel with him, and get the best out of his offensive weapons. You found something Khalil Herbert. You know you have something with David Montgomery. You hope to develop Darnell Mooney. Cole Kmet keeps getting better, whether it's slowly or not, has been getting better. You could do something. You got to get better at identifying and hiring coaching talents. Plain and simple. I still believe they should go get a special teams coach. Somebody that knows how to communicate with everybody, has been in the room with every coaching staff, has been in the room with all the players, has had his hand in everything because he has players on every side of the ball. That's what I want to see. The rest of the season, I want to see the Bears be competitive like they were against Pittsburgh. I want them to beat the teams they're supposed to and be a pain in the butt for the teams they're supposed to lose to. I want to see Justin Fields to continue to get better, to stay healthy. And I think for the NFL, I think it's good for the Bears to have a quarterback that's good, that makes them interesting. I think it's good for the league to have the Bears mean something. And if you look around the NFL, to see that there's so much talent that's going to try to take the baton and move it forward in the next 5 years, for Chicago to have a team like that, a guy like that, it's good for the league. And I think the foundation is there. How sexy of a place is it for a coaching candidate to come in? Have the Bears done enough to say, do we have what you're looking for, the ingredients to make a world-class meal? I believe they do. But it's going to be interesting to see how that moves forward. So here is the entire TierMaker list. If you're watching us on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network, make sure you guys check us out if you're just listening to us on the podcast version. Thank you so much. First of all, please leave us 5 stars and a comment, of course. But if you want to see the video version, especially on an episode like this, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. So we have the entire list. We're going to do one quick rundown because I do want to make an adjustment. I'm going to put Philadelphia as a playoff contender. Jalen Hurts has been playing better. Devontae Smith has been a reliable wide receiver, especially with the Aguilar injury. And they're going to get Miles Sanders back. Jordan Howard out of nowhere has been playing well. Boston Scott. So I think Philadelphia, shout out to you Eagle fans. I'm going to put them up there a little bit. Looking around the list too, I really want to put Cincinnati up there. I don't think they play good enough defense. I think they're so prone to upsets. But I'm going to leave them on that point of the list right now. Pittsburgh, I just don't think Big Ben is going to figure it out. So I'm not comfortable enough putting them as a playoff contender. The Chargers are the one I can't help myself. I'm putting the Chargers up there. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. It's a team that if Justin Herbert just plays good enough, they should. What worries me about the Chargers is having to play in Arrowhead, having to play all the way in Buffalo. But in the NFL, right? Who knows? But I think I'm comfortable with that list right there. So we'll go through it. It's over. It's done. It's finite. I have the New Orleans Saints, the Detroit Lions, although between the Detroit Lions and Jacksonville, the future is very bright for them. The Seattle Seahawks, the Atlanta Falcons, the New York Jets, the Giants, the Panthers, and the Texans. My playoff pretenders, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, the Minnesota Vikings, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Indianapolis Colts, the Chicago Bears, Miami Dolphins, and Denver Broncos. But for a lot of teams right there, they're a move away from moving up to that next level. And of course, in this NFL season, who knows? Playoff contenders, though, San Francisco 49ers, the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens, the Tennessee Titans, the Washington football team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the LA Chargers. And my Super Bowl contenders, the Buffalo Bills, the Arizona Cardinals, the Dallas Cowboys, the LA Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Green Bay Packers. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think about the tier list midway through the 2021 NFL season? Who do you have as Super Bowl contenders? Who is season ending already? Is it somebody we have on the list? Is it somebody else? Where's your favorite team on the list? Let me know on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk and on Twitter at Mike M Media. Make sure you like, rate, review, and share wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. And subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Please take care of yourself, take care of each other, enjoy all the games. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.